Look at the modern American suburb. You pay $600,000 to share a quarter acre of poisoned grass with a neighbor you despise. The homeowner association fines you for parking your own truck in your own driveway. The city taxes you into poverty just for existing. They call that the American dream. We call it an open-air prison. True wealth in 2026 is not a high-rise condo or a paper-thin subdivision. True wealth is acreage, dirt, distance. The ultimate survival asset today is the abandoned American farm. We are hunting for 10 forgotten rural properties across the heartland where $50,000 to $75,000 buys you a solid farmhouse, heavy timber barns, and enough land to completely sever your reliance on the system. We are not buying lawns. We are buying sovereign territory. Let us break down the heavy machinery, the manual labor, and the exact cost of becoming your own lord. Number 10. Parsons, Kansas. Welcome to Labette County. This is the deep Midwest where corporate farming swallowed up the little guy. When the mega farms consolidated the cornfields, they left behind thousands of small 5 to 10 acre parcels with original 1950s farmhouses on them. They do not want the houses, they just want the cropland. That is your loophole. You can buy a heavy brick farmhouse on 8 acres for $65,000. But when a farm sits empty for 5 years, nature violently reclaims it. The perimeter is choked with thick sumac bushes, locust trees, and thorn vines. A city dweller calls a landscaping crew, who quotes them $15,000 to clear it. You do not call anyone. You go to the heavy equipment yard and rent a 90-horsepower tracked skid steer, equipped with a high-flow forestry mulcher attachment. It costs $1,500 for the weekend. You sit in that armored cab, drop the spinning steel drum to the dirt, and you annihilate 5 years of overgrowth in 48 hours. You turn 3-inch thick trees into sawdust in seconds. But here is the real secret of Parsons, the Agricultural Tax Exemption. If you clear that land and lease 5 acres of it to a local neighbor to graze a few cows or cut hay, the county classifies your property as active agriculture. Your property taxes drop from $2,000 a year down to roughly $80 a year. You use the heavy machinery to clear the dirt, and you use the local tax code to starve the government. You own 8 acres of flat, fertile earth, and nobody can tell you what to do with it. Number 9. Greenville, Mississippi. We are going deep into the Mississippi Delta. The dirt here is legendary. It is some of the most nutrient-dense, fertile topsoil on the planet. The population is shrinking, the poverty rate is high, and the real estate prices are rock bottom. You are not moving here for the nightlife. You are moving here for the infrastructure. You can buy a 15-acre abandoned farmstead for $70,000. The house will be rough, but you are not buying this for the house. You are buying it for the red iron steel agricultural equipment shed sitting in the back. To build a 40-foot by 60-foot steel shop today costs $80,000. You are getting it thrown in for free. But the Mississippi humidity is brutal, and the bottom 6 inches of the corrugated steel siding where it touches the dirt will be rusted out. You do not tear the building down. You fix it. You buy an 18-volt cordless metal cutting circular saw. You snap a chalk line perfectly level around the entire perimeter of the barn, exactly 12 inches off the ground. You cut the rotting bottom edge of the steel right off. Then you dig a shallow trench, build wooden forms, and pour a 12-inch high concrete curb around the base. You bolt a heavy-duty galvanized J-channel to the new concrete, and you drop the clean-cut steel siding directly into it. It costs you $1,000 in concrete and hardware. You have just permanently waterproofed and resurrected an industrial-grade workshop. You have massive overhead clearance. You can park a backhoe, store a year worth of supplies, and run an off-grid fabrication shop. Greenville gives you the space to build a fortress that the suburban zoning boards banned 30 years ago. Number 8. Oelwein, Iowa. Northeast Iowa is an environment that actively tries to test your limits. The winters are brutal. The snow is deep and the wind is relentless. The people who built these farms in the 1890s knew exactly what they were doing. You can acquire a 19th century heavy timber farmhouse on 6 acres for $60,000. These houses sit on massive fieldstone foundations. The walls are thick and the basements are deep. But your biggest enemy in Iowa is not the foundation. It is the heating bill. Propane companies will bleed you dry when the temperature hits 20 below zero. You must disconnect from their supply chain. You buy an outdoor wood boiler. You do not put the fire inside your historic wooden house. You place the massive steel water jacket boiler 100 feet away in the yard. You rent a trencher and dig a trench 4 feet deep, dropping it below the Iowa frost line. You lay insulated, double-wall PEX tubing from the boiler directly into your basement. You tap that hot water line into a water-to-air heat exchanger mounted inside your existing furnace plenum. You own 6 acres of hardwood timber. You buy a professional-grade steel chainsaw with a 24-inch bar. You spend the cool autumn months felling dead standing ash and oak trees. You split it, you stack it, and you feed that boiler. The water heats to 180 degrees, pumps underground into your basement, and the blower fan pushes massive, relentless heat through your entire house. You are heating a 2,500 square foot 19th century farmhouse through a deadly Iowa winter for absolutely $0 a month. You are completely immune to global energy spikes, pipeline shutoffs, and utility grid failures. Number 7. Marianna, Arkansas. Located in Lee County, Marianna is poor, isolated, and entirely agricultural. There are 0 building codes outside the city limits. It is a true lawless frontier for a man who knows how to use his hands. You can buy 20 acres of overgrown pasture and a cinderblock farmhouse for $75,000. But owning 20 acres means you must master diesel mechanics. You cannot manage this land with a fragile plastic riding mower from a big box store. You must hunt down a 1980s Massey Ferguson or John Deere utility tractor. You want a machine built before 1995. You want mechanical fuel injection. You absolutely refuse to buy anything with an electronic control module or a diesel exhaust fluid emission system. Modern tractors are rolling computers that the manufacturer can remotely shut down. A 1980s diesel is a purely mechanical beast that will run through an electromagnetic pulse. You find a used 50 horsepower tractor for $8,000. It will have dry rotted hydraulic hoses. You do not panic. You take a pair of 1-inch wrenches, crack the fittings loose, and catch the leaking hydraulic fluid in a pan. You take the old hoses to the local NAPA auto parts store. They will crimp you brand new high-pressure hoses for $150. You thread them back on, top off the hydraulic reservoir, and the machine is immortal. You hook up a heavy-duty post-hole digger to the rear power takeoff shaft. You drop the auger into the Arkansas dirt, drill 3-foot deep holes, and sink 6-inch thick treated wooden posts. You string high-tensile barbed wire around your 20-acre perimeter using a ratcheting come-along winch. You lock down your borders. You control who enters and who leaves. You are establishing a sovereign boundary in a county that completely ignores you. Number 6. Maysville, Kentucky. Mason County, Kentucky, is defined by rolling green hills, winding rivers, and the ghosts of old tobacco money. The tobacco industry collapsed decades ago, leaving behind massive, beautiful agricultural relics. You are hunting for a property with a historic black tobacco barn. You can find 10 acres with an old farmhouse and a 3,000 square foot tobacco barn for $70,000. The vertical space inside these barns is staggering. They were built tall to hang and cure tobacco leaves. The exterior wooden siding is usually painted black to absorb heat. It looks intimidating, but the wood is incredibly rot-resistant. Your immediate threat is the roof. A leaking roof will destroy the massive oak post and beam framing inside. You do not hire a roofing company. You rent an all-terrain articulating boom lift for $400 a day. You order custom-cut 29-gauge painted steel roofing panels. You operate the joystick, elevate yourself 40 feet into the air, and drop those massive steel sheets directly over the old wooden slats. You drive 2-inch galvanized screws with rubber neoprene washers straight into the oak purlins using an impact driver. It is dangerous, dizzying work. But when you are done, you have secured an architectural masterpiece. You dig a trench from the main house and run a 100-amp direct burial aluminum electrical feed out to the barn. You wire up a sub-panel. You install massive LED high bay shop lights. You have just created an industrial-scale, weather-tight workshop that would cost you $200,000 to build from scratch in the modern world. You can restore classic cars, build custom machinery, or stockpile years of provisions. Maysville gives you the acreage and the monumental structures to build a life that is entirely too big for the modern American suburb. Number 5. Poplar, Bluff, Missouri. Deep in the foothills of the Ozarks lies Butler County. The population is stagnant, the humidity is oppressive, and the land is cheap. You are hunting for a 15-acre overgrown pasture with a 1970s pole barn sitting in the back. You can secure the property and a modest house for $60,000. A massive pole barn is the ultimate agricultural asset, but post-frame construction has a fatal flaw. After 40 years in the wet Missouri dirt, the 6x6 treated wooden posts rot at the ground level. A suburban buyer looks at a leaning, sinking barn and runs away. A commercial contractor will quote you $25,000 to tear it down and build a new one. You do not tear it down, you rescue it. You buy a 20-ton hydraulic bottle jack and a heavy 6x6 temporary wooden post. You place the jack on a wide steel plate on the dirt. You wedge the temporary post under the massive wooden roof truss directly next to the rotting post. You pump the jack handle and literally lift the entire roof of the barn half an inch into the air. The tension is terrifying, but the physics are absolute. Once the weight is supported, you take a heavy-duty reciprocating saw with a 12-inch wood blade. You cut the rotting 6x6 post completely in half, exactly 2 feet above the dirt, in the solid, unrotted wood. You dig out the rotten stump with a mattock. You mix 6 bags of 4,000 psi fast-setting high-strength concrete in a wheelbarrow. You pour a massive 24-inch deep concrete pier right where the old post used to be. While the concrete is wet, you sink a massive half-inch thick galvanized steel post base bracket dead center. You let it cure for 48 hours until it is hard as stone. Then you simply lower the hydraulic jack, allowing the suspended wooden post to drop perfectly into the new steel bracket. You bolt it through with massive half-inch galvanized carriage bolts. You repeat this brutal, heavy process for every rotted post on the barn. For $500 in concrete and steel, you have permanently resurrected a $30,000 agricultural building. You have a massive dry space to park your machinery, entirely off the books. Number 4. Caribou, Maine. Welcome to Aroostook County. This is the extreme northern tip of the United States. It is potato country. It borders Canada, and the winters are long, dark, and unforgiving. The population has been bleeding out for decades as the small potato farms consolidated into corporate monopolies. You can buy 30 acres of old potato fields and a farmhouse for $55,000. It is absolute breathtaking isolation. But the enemy here is not just the cold. The enemy is the spring thaw. When the deep snow melts, the 400-foot dirt driveway leading to your farmhouse becomes an impassable, bottomless swamp of mud. A city dweller would be trapped, unable to get a vehicle in or out for 6 weeks. You need industrial infrastructure. Do not hire an excavation company who will charge you $15,000 to fix a dirt road. You rent a 50-horsepower four-wheel drive diesel tractor equipped with a front-end loader and a heavy steel rear box blade. You order 6 dump truck loads of 3-inch crushed bank-run gravel. But you do not just dump the stone into the mud. The earth will swallow it. You buy massive rolls of heavy-duty woven geotextile road fabric. You roll this incredibly tough synthetic fabric directly over the mud for the entire 400-foot length of the driveway. It acts like a snowshoe for the heavy gravel, distributing the weight and physically separating the mud from the stone. You use the front-end loader to spread the gravel 6 inches deep over the fabric. Then you drop the rear box blade. You drag the heavy steel blade up and down the driveway, repeatedly, until you crown the center. You must engineer a 2% slope from the center of the road down to the edges so the water instantly sheds into the ditches. You have established a permanent, all-weather, heavy-duty supply line to your fortress. You can drive a 10,000-pound diesel truck up to your house in the middle of a torrential downpour, and the road will not even rut. You own 30 acres of northern frontier, and you have mastered the terrain. Number 3. Huron, South Dakota. The Great Plains do not care about you. The landscape is flat, the sky is massive, and there is absolutely nothing to stop the wind. Huron sits in Beadle County. The population is 14,000, and the surrounding farmland is a sea of wheat and soybeans. You are hunting for 40 acres of flat prairie and a 1920s farmhouse. You can buy it for $65,000, but you are buying a property completely exposed to the elements. When a 60-mile-per-hour January blizzard hits, the wind chill drops to 40 below zero, and the snow drifts will literally bury your front door. The original tree lines called shelter belts were planted in the 1930s, and many have died of old age. You must reshape the earth itself to survive. You rent a 20-ton John Deere 650K bulldozer for $2,000 a week. You do not need a license. You just need grit. You fire up the massive diesel engine, engage the steel tracks, and you push thousands of cubic yards of topsoil. You construct a massive earthen berm, a literal wall of dirt 10 feet high and 200 feet long on the north side of your property. The aerodynamics of this dirt wall will physically force the freezing wind and the driving snow completely up and over your house, creating a massive dead air zone in your yard. But you do not stop with dirt. On the backside of the berm, you plant 300 bare-root Colorado blue spruce trees. You do not dig 300 holes with a shovel. You attach a heavy steel tree planter to the 3-point hitch of your tractor. You sit on the planter as the tractor drags a steel blade through the earth, slicing a deep trench. You drop a tiny tree into the trench every 10 feet, and the heavy cast-iron packer wheels instantly crush the dirt back around the roots. In 10 years, you will have a 30-foot-tall, impenetrable living wall of evergreen timber. You have engineered your own microclimate. You altered the aerodynamics of the Great Plains to protect your family, your livestock, and your property. Number 2. Iron River, Michigan. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan is a harsh, heavily forested wilderness. It is a place for men who know how to run a chainsaw and turn a wrench. Iron County is full of abandoned 20-acre timber parcels. The old mining and logging money dried up a century ago. You can buy 20 acres of dense, mature pine and hemlock with a small hunting cabin for $70,000. The true survival asset here is the timber itself. In the modern world, a warped, chemically treated 2x4 from a corporate big box store costs a fortune. You are going to completely sever yourself from the corporate lumber supply chain. You buy a portable bandsaw mill, like a Wood Miser LT15. You set the heavy steel track perfectly level on the ground. You walk into your 20-acre forest with a professional Husqvarna chainsaw. You drop dead standing 60-foot pine trees using plastic felling wedges and a heavy axe. You cut them into 12-foot logs. You use a heavy steel logging PV tool to manually roll a 1,000-pound log directly onto the bed of the sawmill. You clamp it down with heavy steel dogs. You fire up the 14-horsepower gas engine. You open the water drip valve to keep the blade cool and lubricated. You push the screaming steel bandsaw blade straight through the massive log, slicing off the bark. You adjust the depth gauge, and you cut perfect, true, rough-sawn 2x4s, 2x6s, and massive 8x8 structural beams. You sticker and stack the fresh-cut lumber in an open shed so the wind can slowly air-dry it over the summer. You are literally manufacturing your own building materials out of the dirt you own. You can build barns, massive equipment sheds, and cabin additions for the exact cost of gasoline and your own physical sweat. You are entirely self-reliant. You own the land, you own the raw materials, and you own the means of production. Number 1. Altus, Oklahoma. Welcome to Jackson County. Located in the deep southwest corner of Oklahoma. This is the heart of Tornado Alley. The weather here is violent, the summers are scorching, and the population is stagnant. You can buy 20 acres of flat red dirt and a solid 1960s brick house for $75,000. But the brick house is not the ultimate asset. The true survival asset is buried in the backyard. You are hunting for a property with an underground, poured concrete storm shelter. These were built decades ago to survive EF4 and EF5 tornadoes that will wipe a brick house entirely off its foundation. But an abandoned shelter is a dark, flooded nightmare. Decades of shifting clay soil create micro cracks in the old concrete, and the high water table seeps in. You will open the heavy steel door and find a subterranean concrete box filled with 3 feet of stagnant black water. Most people walk away. You embrace the labor. You drop a 2-inch gas-powered trash pump down the stairs and blast the stagnant water out into the pasture. You put on a heavy-duty respirator, climb down into the dark, damp box, and go to work. You use a heavy angle grinder with a wire cup brush to violently scrub the concrete walls, exposing the bare, open pores of the cement. You mix a bucket of crystalline waterproofing compound. It is a highly specialized chemical slurry. You brush it onto the wet concrete walls with a heavy masonry brush. The chemicals penetrate deep into the microscopic pores of the concrete, reacting with the moisture to form insoluble, razor-sharp crystals that permanently block the water. The wall cures as hard as iron, but you never trust groundwater. You use a heavy rotary hammer drill to core a massive hole in the absolute lowest point of the concrete floor. You dig out the dirt beneath it and sink a perforated plastic sump basin. You drop a 12-volt heavy-duty cast-iron sump pump into the basin. You wire the pump directly to a 100-amp-hour deep-cycle marine battery, constantly trickle-charged by a 50-watt solar panel bolted to the roof of the shelter. You never plug it into the municipal grid. If a massive tornado wipes out the entire county power grid, your subterranean pump continues to run silently, ejecting any groundwater. You have a bone-dry, flood-proof, bomb-proof concrete bunker buried in the earth. You can store 2 years of dehydrated food, emergency medical supplies, and ammunition. When the sirens go off and the sky turns black, you walk down the concrete stairs, pull the heavy steel door shut, and lock it from the inside. You own 20 acres of American dirt, and you have conquered the elements.